Joining us on the DolphinsTalk.com podcast is Mike Greenberg from ESPN. You see him every morning on Get Up, and of course, he is also the host of the NFL Draft, and he has his radio show, Greeny. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, and you have a new book that's about to come out next Tuesday. Got Your Number, the greatest sports legends and the numbers they own. It comes out on April 4th next week. You can pre-order it on Amazon and on the Barnes & Noble website and everywhere else you get your books. I read the book over the weekend. It's a fun book, and I love these types of books in that you give your answers, and I know you say, I'm right, you're wrong type of thing, but it does spark a debate of, should that number be that? Should that number be something else? So what was the thought process behind the book?
So we were sitting around one day, the Get Up staff, and we made the observation, because we're just a bunch of sports geeks at heart, that how many Hall of Fame quarterbacks all wore the jersey number 12. And of course, Bob Greasy, the legendary Dolphin, is one of those, and Bradshaw and Staubach and Namath and Jim Kelly and someday Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers will obviously both be in the Hall of Fame. And our executive producer is a guy named Pete McConville, and he said, yeah, they all wore number 12, but who owns number 12? Now, I've always wanted to write a sports book, but I never had a good enough idea for one. And in that moment, it's like a light bulb went off over my head, and I said, there's my idea. That's the book. And so I hired my man, Hembo, who has been doing my research for me, dating back to my days on Mike and Mike. He's been with me for 10 years. He's the best in the industry. And I had him do all the research. We chose, he said, okay, Greeny, here are the options for 1. Here are the options for 2. Here are the options for 3, all the way through 100. We sort of sat down, hashed them out. Some of them are easy. Like 23 didn't take a lot of debate. 3 didn't take a lot of debate. 99, 42. But some of them are hard choices. Yes. Yeah. But that was really fun. And then he went off and did all the research, and I did all the writing. And so what we have is a book that is, I think, equal parts, and I'm delighted that you've read it, equal parts sports debate and sports history. Like we're making choices so you can disagree. And then we're telling you whether you agree or not. I'm willing to bet, and this is purely a testament to how good the research that Hembo does is, that every sports fan, no matter how knowledgeable they are, will learn stuff they didn't know in this book. Even about the most famous players, be they Babe Ruth or Babe Dietrich Zaharias or anyone in between. And so that's where the idea from the book came from, and that's what it is. And I'm just thrilled. Everyone I've talked to so far has the same reaction you do, which is it's fun and easy to read, and so I'm delighted, and I'm looking forward to everyone being able to get the chance.
Yeah, and just so fans know, it's not just jersey numbers. Sometimes it's also a date. Mike Tyson, when he lost to Buster Douglas, was in 1990. That's number 90. Secretariat won by 31 lengths at the Belmont. That's number 31. And the one thing that I learned that I had no idea, Chris Everett and Martina matched up 60 times in tournament finals. I didn't know it was 60. That is an insane amount of times for two legends to match up in a finals of a tennis tournament. That's a big number.
They played each other in the finals of Grand Slams. So in my childhood, I was a tennis player and a tennis fan, and that's my era. I grew up in the 70s. Chrissy and Martina were the great rivalry on the women's side. Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe were the great rivalry on the men's side. That was my perception, anyway. Chrissy and Martina played each other in Grand Slam finals more times than McEnroe and Borg played each other at all. It was incredible. The argument that I make in the book is that Chrissy versus Martina is the greatest rivalry in the history of sports, and I defend it. And that is inclusive of Ali Frazier and inclusive of Bird and Magic and anyone else. To your point, also, as we are on a Dolphins podcast, the number 72 we gave to the 72 Dolphins.
72 Dolphins, I was just going to mention.
They absolutely deserve it. They 100% deserve it. There's some good Dolphin representation in the book. That's there.
And number 13.
And Marino is there.
And also the 83 draft.
And the 83 draft, 83 was a complicated number. And I think that the quarterback class of 83 is so legendary. I mean, there's so many things about it that make it legendary. First of all, it remains to this day the most quarterbacks taken in the first round they remain to this day overwhelmingly the most accomplished quarterback class from any individual year. And then there are all the little particulars of it. The way Jim Kelly played in the USFL, the way Elway forced his way out of at then Baltimore by threatening to play baseball, the way the Jets absolutely fell for the banana in the tailpipe and took Ken O'Brien 3 spots ahead of Dan Marino, which as a Jet fan is painful to this day. The Jets, just a quick note on that, the Jets, there was a time when Marino was still the all-time leading passer. He has been surpassed now by, I think, Favre and then Manning and Breeze and whatever it is. But when there was a period of time there where he was the all-time leading passer. The horrible stat for Jet fans was the Jets had taken in the same drafts a quarterback ahead of Marino, a running back ahead of Emmitt Smith, and a receiver ahead of Jerry Rice. So they had taken players at those positions ahead of the all-time leading rusher, receiver, and passer. How brutal is that? The Jets took Blair Thomas ahead of Emmitt Smith. They took Al Toon ahead of Jerry Rice, and they took O'Brien ahead of Dan Marino. It still hurts me to say it out loud.
Jets fans and fans of the Miami Dolphins, as much as they are always at each other's necks, have a lot in common because they're both at this point long-suffering fans who haven't seen their team have much success. But we'll talk about that later. One of them, like I said, on these, I think you guys got most of them right. There's one of them I think, though, you kind of missed, and that is number 80. When it comes to football players who are non-quarterbacks, I think the list of top 3 in any order: Jim Brown, Lawrence Taylor, Jerry Rice. And as great as Jerry Rice is, when I think the number 80 in sports the last 50, 60 years,
I know what you're going to say.
Brooks, Craig, O'Callahan, Eruzione, and the Miracle on Ice. What was the thought process there? Because I think that's the greatest American Olympic moment, the greatest sports upset of all time, and what it meant also off the ice and in real life was so large in the middle of the Cold War and for the country. That's the one I thought number 80 had to be the Miracle on Ice.
That was brutal. It was a brutal choice to have to make. And in the end, we couldn't think of another way to get Jerry Rice in the book. And here was the, I don't disagree with a word you said. Here's what I did decide. That the first thing people think of when they think of a book like this is the players, is the individual athletes. So wherever we could put a player, we did. The numbers, the 72 Dolphins are in there. The 85 Bears are in there. The some of the other numbers,
78, 79 Steelers.
But for example, the you mentioned the Secretariat number and some of the others that we invented. We did all of those in spots where you weren't leaving out an icon. So, for example, there isn't someone at 39. I don't have the list in front of me, but Hembo gave me a whole list of these are the options that we have at 39. It wasn't like we were leaving out Jerry Rice. And that was how I ultimately chose to do it. Now, you're probably more right than I am, but there was a part of me that I made sure I found a place in the book for Tiger Woods and Muhammad Ali and Serena Williams and Babe Dietrichson and some of these other legends. To leave out Jerry Rice, I felt would have been inexcusable, whereas I don't think people, while I agree with you that I associate 80 with with the Miracle on Ice more, and probably more people now do anyway because of the movie and everything else. That in my opinion, and maybe you're going to convince me by bringing this up that I'm wrong, more people would have noticed Jerry Rice didn't make the book than we left this team out. You know what I mean? Like, I think if we had not put in the 72 Dolphins, no one would have said a word. But if you leave out, if Lawrence Taylor isn't 56, like we seriously contemplated giving 56 to DiMaggio for the hit streak. And because we were able to put DiMaggio in at 5, we didn't have that choice. We didn't have that problem. If we didn't have a spot for DiMaggio, then you could have given DiMaggio 56 or Lawrence Taylor 56. That would have been a brutal choice to have to make. In this case, I wanted to get Jerry Rice in the book. It would have not felt right to me to put a book out there of the greatest sports legends and not include him. But that does not mean I disagree with what you say. Your points are extremely well taken.
Yeah, and I think where I also saw that is when I got to number 33, I was expecting Larry Bird, but you were able to get him in later at number 79 with what he did with Magic. So I saw that makes sense to me, that logic. I just thought that event just was so big, and it meant so much just even off the field of play. That was
so
I mean,
33. So Bird and Magic, that was the interesting one because
yeah,
I had to have both of them in the book.
yeah.
But 32 to me has to be Jim Brown.
Yes.
And that's Magic's number. And 33 has to be Kareem. And that's Bird's number. So I started, Hembo and I started talking, how do we still get each of them in the book? And then it occurred to me there wasn't a great choice for 79. And that's really when it all began. It remains, to the point of the great research, that remains the most watched basketball game ever played to this day on any level. And when Magic and Larry met in 79, and great books have been written about the fact that that's when March Madness became March Madness. So that felt good to me, was putting the two of them in there together. So I liked the idea of including some rivals together. So that's why I put Chrissy and Martina together, and I put Magic and Larry together.
Yeah, because the only other thing I thought of for 79, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, ESPN. That changed the way America consumes sports. Big event, 1979. So that would have been the other one I thought of. But I mean, once again, Magic and Larry, the ratings, like you said, you can't go wrong there. But yeah, I would guess one other one, and then I want to talk some AFC East here, was number 15, Tim Tebow over Pat Mahomes. Now, I'm taking a guess this book was probably written before Pat Mahomes won the second Super Bowl. So that's probably the reason. Yeah, I would say Pat Mahomes now. Yeah, it would be differently now.
That's the one I regret. I don't regret it because we had to hand them. So the two things that came up. So for everyone listening to the conversation understands how this stuff works. You write a book, you hand it in, and it's about a year before it comes out. So last year, so at the time that we wrote this, we were choosing. Mahomes was coming off of a bad showing in that year's playoff. So there was a lot of conversation: is Josh Allen going to wind up better than him? Joe Burrow, who was still so young, I felt to give him like an historical place ahead of Bart Starr did not feel right. So I was going to go with Starr. I was going to give Bart Starr 15. And then Hembo brought up Tebow and said, we don't have a lot of college athletes in here. Collegiate athletes are hard to measure. And in large part because it's almost impossible not to gauge their greatness by how much it carried over to the pros. But when he gave me the research, Tim Tebow is not in the book for his career as an NFL player. He's in the book for I know you read it, but for people who haven't seen it, because people are going to get mad about Tebow. I can see that coming.
Yeah, I know.
Tim Tebow, you could make a pretty good argument, is the greatest college quarterback that ever lived. And we make that argument in the book.
He won the most. He won the most. He won 2 championships. He got more Heisman votes and still holds multiple records to this day. And I think if you include the passion of his fans, I think he might be the most beloved college player that ever lived. His jersey outsold the jerseys of the biggest professional athletes of his day while he was at Florida. So he is definitively not in the book for what he did as a Denver Bronco. He is in the book for what he did as a Florida Gator. And I wanted to put some college athletes in there. So we found a spot for Archie Griffin, and we found some Rebecca
Lobo, some college coaches also. Pat Summitt is in the book. John Wooden is in the book. But that's where Tebow. But 100%, the two that we really kind of fretted over were Aaron Judge and Tebow. I would like to have found a spot for Judge for that record, which so many people now consider to be the clean record.
Legitimate.
But we couldn't do it, and we just didn't. The book, it was just too late.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
When he did it, because that one you had to wait till the last day because you don't even know what number it's going to end up on. You know.
I know. True.
And then for sure, we would have, if we were doing it now, we would give 15 to Mahomes for sure.
Yep. Let's talk some AFC East. Your Jets are on the verge, you think? Well, I mean, it's going to happen. They're going to get Aaron Rodgers. Just a matter of when. They're going to take a big leap this year, obviously, with him at quarterback. Miami just added Ramsey, and they're sort of all in because they don't have almost any picks this year in the draft. They have 4 picks. They've traded all their picks for Chubb, Ramsey, Hill. They're all in. AFC East this year should be fun. Let's start with Miami. Where do you see them after the Ramsey trade? Obviously, it's all around the quarterback and his health. But do you think Miami has a shot here to make a run in the AFC should the quarterback stay healthy?
Definitely. I think, look, I was incredibly impressed with their performance against Buffalo with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. And that's, when you're on your third string, look, the Jets with their first string quarterback had the worst quarterback play I've ever seen. You guys all got to see that up close and personal in Zach Wilson. And obviously now you have Mike White, who is you're going to fall in love with. But you're not going to win a Super Bowl with Mike White. You could absolutely win the Super Bowl with Tua. If you told me right now, Tua is going to play the majority of the season, let's just say, 14 or 15 games, and B, is going to be healthy at the end, where they're going to go into the playoffs with him at the end, then I would put them neck and neck with anybody. The team I think I like the most is Cincinnati, but I would say Cincinnati. There is a tier, and I think the Dolphins are definitively on it with Tua, and definitively not on it without him. And that's true of every team. I mean, the Bengals aren't on it without Burrow, and the Chiefs aren't on it without Mahomes. You don't have the same concerns about Burrow and Mahomes that you have about Tonga Vailoa for all the obvious reasons that no one listening to this podcast needs explained to them. So that's the question. I think from the top of the roster to the bottom, I think they're better than Cincinnati or Kansas City or the Jets, who are very good, or Buffalo, who are very good, or Cleveland, I think, is going to be better, much better than they were. I think, Deshaun Watson, for all of the horrible stuff,
off the field, yeah,
he's an excellent player. And last year was just a write-off. But I think he will put it back together again. And who else in the AFC? A lot of people like the Chargers.
I don't trust them.
Jacksonville, maybe. No, neither do I, not with the coach. And then some people like Jacksonville. I like the quarterback there a lot. But generally speaking, I think the Dolphins, top to bottom, talent-wise, are better, probably better than any of them. If the quarterback is healthy, that's why I wondered whether they would try and get themselves involved in the Lamar Jackson thing, because they don't have the 2 first-round picks to trade, but you could do a tag and trade, like the kind of situation. And if you figured out a way, and look, I don't even like saying this out loud because the kid's got concussion problems, and God bless him. I hope more than anything in the world that he is healthy and lives a long, healthy life and makes a fortune of money playing football and everything else. But that's not the same kind of injury concerns that we see with most other players. So I wondered, would they try and figure out a way to get themselves Lamar Jackson? Because if you put Lamar Jackson, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle on the field together, you might win an Olympic relay. I mean, you literally might. And B, you would have the most dynamic offense in the history of the sport. I mean, there would be nothing even comparable that I can think of that the sport has ever seen. So I wondered if they would do that. And obviously, at least to this point, they haven't. And so that's the obvious question. I'm just sort of talking around in circles. If Tua is healthy, then I put them on the list of, I think there's a tier of 3 teams. I think Cincinnati, Kansas City, and the Dolphins would be on that tier. I think the next tier would be the Jets, assuming that we have Rodgers, the Bills, and maybe that's it.
That might be it.
Maybe that's it. And then
because you can't put the Ravens now because they're in so much of a mess with the quarterback.
No, and they weren't anyway. They've done a very bad job putting that team together. I mean, look, so somewhere along the line, we have to talk a little more about what a bad job they've done putting players around that quarterback. They're a mess right now. I think the Ravens, I think the Steelers are going to be better than them next year. I think the Browns are going to be, I think the Ravens will be the worst team in that division next year.
I could totally see it because it's just a mess. And on your Jets, look, he's going there, Rodgers. We know that. Do you think they're also going to add Odell to the mix? I know today he showed up at the owners' meeting, unexpected, just to mingle with a bunch of teams, it sounds like. You think they're also going to add Odell? And Rodgers makes them better. It's still a young team, though. It's a very young team. They lost their last 6 games last year, mainly because of the quarterback play, we know. And they got some young guys who like to talk. I mean, they're a little chirpy online. Where do you see the Jets in 2023 with Rodgers and if they'll land Odell?
I think with or without Odell. He would be great, but I don't he would be a luxury. Like the Jets are finally in a place where you can actually like think about the rims. You know what I mean? Like on your car.
Yeah.
Like the Jets have been a place where we didn't have an engine. So, now we have enough. If the Jets, I think it's important that they hold on to the 13th pick in the draft. That's why I think this thing is stretching out, because I do the draft, and so I have been studying the players, and I can tell you right now, the first 9 or 10 picks are pretty much all going to be quarterbacks and pass rushers. That's where the beginning of this draft is. It's one corner everybody likes a lot, and everyone else is going to be either an edge rusher or a quarterback. And then there was from like 9 to 20. There were like 7 offensive tackles that are going to – it's going to be a run on tackles, and that is what the Jets need more than anything, whether their quarterback is 40 years old or not. The Jets need that, and so that's why I think they're trying desperately to hold on to that. If they remake the offensive line, which shouldn't have been as bad as it was, they had terrible injury problems there, then I think the Jets are very talented. They have a very good defense. I think Garrett Wilson has a chance to be an absolute superstar at receiver. Lazard is a very nice pickup. The tight ends are good. Conklin and Uzama, who they had last year, and the running back Breece Hall, before he got hurt, I think was trending towards being the offensive rookie of the year, the award that Garrett Wilson eventually won. So yeah, the difference is that they're unproven, but I kind of like the chirpiness, because to me it is an indication that they don't know what they don't know. Like those guys, here's what they know. They know they're good. Like they don't know that they're supposed to be the Jets. They don't know that people are supposed to make fun of them. They don't know that they're supposed to be the same old Jets. They don't know that they're not supposed to be the organization a guy like Aaron Rodgers would even consider playing for. They're like, hell with that. That's the past. We're good. I don't have anything to do with that. And I kind of like that. So I think a lot of it is going to depend on what Rodgers we're getting. Like, are we getting an Aaron Rodgers who looks like the guy who played 2 years ago? Are we getting a guy who's all in, who's totally bought in, who's living and breathing and sleeping and dying it? Or are we getting the guy was 90% retired before he went into a dark room and is coming back for $60 million? And like, I don't know the answer to that. Like he's the best chance we have. So I have been all in favor and am all in favor of doing it. But you would have to be insane not to acknowledge that it comes with a lot of risk. What Rodgers are we getting? If we get a Rodgers who's, 80% of what he was 2 and 3 years ago, the Jets have a chance. I give them a puncher's chance in any game. There's no game, whether it's in Miami or in Kansas City or in Cincinnati or, God help us, even in MetLife Stadium, that hasn't hosted a Jets playoff game literally since 2002. When it wasn't even MetLife Stadium yet. We've actually never played a home game in the stadium that we play in now. I think they absolutely have a chance. I don't think they're as good top to bottom as Miami, Kansas City, or Cincinnati, but I think they're close enough that on the right day, they could beat any of them.
Absolutely. And I think the one thing we all know is the AFC East is going to be a lot of fun next year with 3 good teams. For 20 years, the AFC East was the Patriots and Larry Curly and Moe, who could never get out of their own way. Now it's flipped. Larry Curly and Moe got really, really good, and the Patriots are kind of lagging behind. And the AFC East, with those 3 teams, are going to be a lot of fun to watch in 2023.
I agree. And it's I don't know how much fun it'll be. I think it'll be outstanding. It'll
be entertaining.
How much fun I'll have. I would much rather be playing Larry, Curly, and Moe. Let's put it that way. I would just once. I'd like to see it be someone else who's giving themselves the little poke in the eye. And I don't even think the Patriots are going to be that bad, to be honest with you. I never put anything past that guy.
No.
So.
Oh, I think we might have lost you, Mike. Mike, I think you cut out there. Oh, now you're back. There
Sorry, I got another call. Sorry about that.
No, your problem. We're about to wrap up. No,
Okay.
That's fine. Anyways, everyone, get the book. You can pre-order it now. Mike Greenberg got your numbers 1 through 99. Each one's got a nice little story. And like I said, you're going to agree with probably 95% of them, but the 5% is going to be a lot of fun. Like, I can't believe you picked that one and not this one. It's a fun book. Pre-order it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble's next week. And, of course, watch Mike on ESPN get up in the NFL draft in about a month. Mike, thanks so much for a few moments of your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.